Alexander Kane sat alone in the corner of Le Jardin, the city's most exclusive restaurant, staring at the untouched glass of vintage wine before him. The soft hum of conversation, the clinking of cutlery, and the flickering candlelight should have felt comforting. But tonight, all felt empty. He had been here dozens of times, on countless dates arranged by friends, matchmakers, and even apps catered to the ultra-wealthy. Each encounter followed the same predictable pattern: small talk, fake laughter, and a desperate search for some spark that never came. At 35, Alexander had everything most men could dream of: his tech empire, a penthouse overlooking the skyline, a collection of cars that would make any enthusiast drool. But his love life was a barren wasteland. Women seemed drawn to his bank account rather than the man behind it. Conversations about dreams and passions were rare. Most just wanted to know which charity gala he'd attend next or which private island he'd rent for vacation. He sighed, swirling the wine in his glass, watching the deep crimson catch the candlelight. He had almost given up entirely. Maybe dating wasn't meant for him. Maybe he was destined to live a life of board meetings and business trips, with only his wealth for company. "Another glass of water, sir?" a soft voice asked. Alexander looked up and noticed a waitress standing politely by his table. She was nothing like the women he usually met at galas or parties. Her uniform was simple, practical, but there was a warmth in her eyes that immediately stood out. She smiled, genuine, unforced, and for a moment, Alexander felt a flicker of curiosity. Yes, thank you," he said, surprised at how nervous he felt. Her name tag read Maya Rivera. She moved gracefully, balancing several plates with ease, and handled a fussy table nearby with patience and charm. Alexander watched her interactions discreetly, intrigued by the way she made even demanding customers feel valued. It was refreshing, almost mesmerizing. As she returned with his water, he found himself speaking before he could stop himself. You seem good at this." Maya raised an eyebrow, slightly amused. "Good at what?" "Handling people," he said. "Somehow, you make it look easy." She shrugged lightly, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "I've been doing this for a few years. You get used to it. People are complicated, but not impossible." Her answer was simple, unpretentious, and for some reason, it struck a chord in him. No one had ever said anything like that to him before. He realized he wanted to hear more, to understand her perspective, to know the world she saw through her eyes. "Do you ever get tired of it?" he asked, almost hesitantly. "The job, I mean." Maya laughed softly, a sound that seemed to make the air warmer. "Every day, but it's honest work, and it has its rewards. Some days, a simple smile or a thank you makes it all worthwhile. Some days," she glanced at him, her tone playful, "you get interesting customers who make the night memorable." Alexander felt a jolt at her words, the subtle hint that she might be talking about him. He blinked, trying to suppress the smile tugging at his lips. This was different. This was not a woman dazzled by wealth, nor one playing a game to win his attention. She was real, raw, honest. He leaned back in his chair, feeling a strange sensation he hadn't felt in years: hope. Maybe, just maybe, this evening wouldn't end like all the others. Maybe, for the first time in a long while, he could imagine connecting with someone who saw him for him, not his fortune. After months of chance encounters, laughter, and heartfelt conversations, Alexander Kane and Maya Rivera had found something neither wealth nor status could buy: true love. From the bustling restaurant to quiet city streets, from humble cafes to starlit rooftops, they learned that trust, honesty, and connection were far more valuable than fortune. In each other, they had found a home, a partner, and a life filled with joy, respect, and unwavering support. The billionaire CEO who once feared love had finally discovered the warmth of a genuine heart. The determined waitress who guarded her dreams had found someone who cherished her for who she truly was. Together, they prove that when love is real, it transcends differences, challenges, and expectations, creating a story that would shine far brighter than any wealth or privilege in the world. As Maya moved to serve another table, Alexander watched her go, a small smile lingering on his face. Little did he know, the night had only just begun, and it would change the course of his carefully controlled life in ways he never imagined. The next evening, Alexander found himself back at Le Jardin. He told himself it was purely coincidental, a craving for the chef's truffle risotto or a quiet spot to read reports. But deep down, he knew why he returned. He wanted to see Maya Rivera again, the waitress with a warm smile and effortless charm who had stirred something long dormant inside him. As he entered, the familiar scent of fresh bread and lavender candles greeted him. Maya was there, moving swiftly between tables, juggling trays and taking orders. Alexander couldn't help but admire the fluidity of her movements, the patience she showed even when a child at another table began to cry, the gentle way she soothed the infant's mother with a few kind words. He caught her eye, and she gave him a polite nod. There was no recognition, no hint that she remembered the brief exchange from the previous night. And yet, he felt a rush of anticipation he hadn't felt in years. Settling at a small corner table, Alexander opened a file of contracts but found himself unable to concentrate. Every now and then his eyes darted to Maya. She laughed at a joke from a customer, her smile lighting up the room, and for a fleeting moment, the walls he had built around himself seemed to crumble. Then came the incident. A tray wobbled on her hand as a clumsy diner brushed past. For a second, everyone froze. Plates teetered dangerously, threatening to spill onto the table. But Maya, unflustered, steadied the tray with a deft flick of her wrist and a calm, "I've got it. Don't worry." The diners laughed nervously, and she continued, unfazed, delivering the food without a single drop spilled. Alexander's eyebrows shot up. That was the kind of poise he admired, grace under pressure. Most people would have panicked, but not her. When she passed his table again, he couldn't resist. "That was impressive," he said, smiling genuinely this time. Maya paused, placing the water on his table. "Thank you," she replied, raising an eyebrow. "You know, not everyone notices the little things." Alexander leaned forward. "I notice, and I appreciate it." For a moment, Maya regarded him silently, as if assessing him. Then a faint, amused smile tugged at her lips. "You're kind of bold for a regular customer who just started coming in." He chuckled, feeling a strange warmth. "I like to appreciate talent when I see it." Maya shook her head slightly, walking away to tend to another table. Alexander watched her go, but he couldn't stop the curiosity bubbling inside him. She was unlike anyone he had met, witty, competent, and genuinely kind. There was no pretense, no ulterior motive. She didn't know who he was, and that made the connection feel real. Later that evening, as Alexander prepared to leave, Maya approached him again. "Your food will be ready in 5 minutes," she said, but there was a subtle hesitation in her tone. "Also, thank you for noticing. Most people don't." He smiled. "I mean it, and maybe I'll be back tomorrow to notice again." Her eyes sparkled with amusement. "We'll see," she replied, a playful lilt in her voice that made his chest tighten slightly. As he stepped out into the cool night air, Alexander felt an unfamiliar sensation, a sense of anticipation rather than the usual boredom he associated with dating. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about business deals, social appearances, or the endless parade of superficial conversations. He was thinking about her. Meanwhile, Maya returned to the kitchen, her mind unusually distracted. There was something about the man who had taken a moment to appreciate her that lingered. His gaze wasn't judgmental or patronizing. He hadn't tried to impress her with wealth or status. He had simply noticed her. That small acknowledgement, seemingly insignificant, stayed with her long after he left. Little did either of them know, this simple interaction would mark the beginning of a series of events that would change both of their lives forever. Alexander's carefully controlled existence was about to collide with Maya's grounded, authentic world, and the sparks that flew in that small corner of Le Jardin would ignite into something neither of them expected. As he drove home, Alexander found himself smiling at the thought of returning. For the first time in years, he felt a flicker of hope, a possibility that maybe, just maybe, the right person was out there, and she might already be standing right in front of him, balancing trays and changing the course of his heart. Alexander found himself returning to Le Jardin with increasing frequency over the next week. He tried to convince himself it was coincidental, a craving for the chef's signature dishes, a quiet place to review his portfolio, But deep down, he knew the truth. He was drawn to Maya Rivera, the waitress whose laughter lingered in his mind long after he left the restaurant. Maya, busy with her usual tasks, barely noticed him at first. She treated him like any other customer, though there was a subtle difference in her demeanor, a polite curiosity that hadn't been there the first night. Alexander noticed it, and it made him smile. One evening, as she refilled his water, he ventured beyond small talk. "Do you ever get a chance to sit down and enjoy your own meal?" he asked. Maya laughed softly. "Rarely. I live on leftovers and coffee breaks. But that's part of the charm, isn't it? Makes the moments when I can sit down and eat feel earned." "You have a good perspective," Alexander said, leaning back. "Most people complain about it." "It's all about how you see it," Maya replied, her eyes glinting with humor. "Life's complicated enough without adding whining to the mix." Her words struck a chord. Alexander had spent years immersed in boardrooms and negotiations, where people complained endlessly about trivial matters. Here was someone who faced real challenges yet maintained humor and grace. He realized he wanted to know more about her world, her thoughts, her dreams. Over the next few visits, their conversations grew longer. Alexander learned that Maya supported her younger brother, worked tirelessly to save for her own cafe, and dreamed of traveling to Europe one day. She spoke candidly about her struggles, never seeking pity, and with a lightness that made the heavy realities feel manageable. Alexander, in turn, found himself revealing small truths about his life, his love for jazz, his obsession with vintage watches, his distaste for the shallow socialite scene. Maya didn't respond with awe or curiosity about his wealth. She simply listened, occasionally teasing him, sometimes challenging him, but always treating him as an equal rather than a spectacle. One evening, a particularly stressful moment arose. A family with 2 young children sat near his table, and one of the kids accidentally knocked over a glass of water, spilling it all over the table. Maya rushed over, apologizing and cleaning with practiced efficiency, while the frazzled parents fretted. Alexander watched her, genuinely impressed. "You handle chaos well," he said once she returned to his table, hands slightly damp but still graceful. "Chaos is part of life," Maya said, smiling. "You either learn to dance with it or get crushed under it." Alexander chuckled. "I like that analogy, dancing with chaos." The conversation naturally shifted, and Alexander found himself laughing more freely than he had in years. He talked about his childhood, the pressures of building a tech empire, the loneliness that came with success. Maya listened without judgment, offering insights that were both practical and deeply human. For the first time, he didn't feel like a billionaire with an image to maintain. He felt like Alexander, a man capable of laughter, vulnerability, and connection. Maya, meanwhile, felt a subtle but undeniable pull toward him. There was something about the way he spoke, the way his attention lingered on her, as though she were the only person in the room. She sensed authenticity in him, a depth few people revealed. And though a small part of her remained cautious, wondering if his interest would wane once he got what he wanted, another part wanted to trust him, to see where this connection could lead. One evening, after the restaurant had quieted down, Alexander lingered. "Can I walk you to your car?" he asked, surprising himself with the boldness of the question. Maya hesitated for a fraction of a second, then nodded. "Sure, why not?" As they stepped into the cool night, the city lights shimmering around them, Alexander realized he was nervous in a way he hadn't been in years. It wasn't fear of failure or worry about appearances. It was excitement, genuine, unfiltered excitement. "Why do you keep coming here?" Maya asked, glancing at him with a teasing smile. "Honestly," Alexander said, pausing, "because of you. I've met a lot of people, but there's something different about you. You make me feel human again." Maya's expression softened. "I'm glad I can do that," she said quietly. "But you should know, I'm not easy to impress. And I've been disappointed by people before." "I know," Alexander said, meeting her gaze. "And I'm not here to impress you with money or status. I just want to get to know you." For a moment, there was silence, filled with the hum of the city, the distant honk of traffic, and the subtle heartbeat of anticipation between them. Maya studied him carefully, weighing his words. And then, slowly, a small smile curved her lips. "All right," she said softly. "We'll see if you can actually pull that off." Alexander's chest lifted, a rare feeling of hope flooding through him. This was no longer just another evening in a restaurant. This was the beginning of something real, something neither of them could predict, yet both silently hoped would last. As they parted ways for the night, Alexander couldn't stop replaying her smile, her laughter, her energy. It was intoxicating, thrilling, and terrifying in the best way possible. For the first time in a long time, he was not thinking about the next business deal or the next gala. He was thinking about her. And he knew, deep down, that nothing in his carefully controlled life would ever be the same again. The next few weeks were a delicate dance of stolen glances, brief conversations, and unspoken curiosity. Alexander found himself returning to Le Jardin almost daily. Though he still insisted to himself it was merely for the food. In reality, it was to see Maya Rivera, her smile, her wit, the way she seemed to light up even the dullest corner of the restaurant. Maya, however, was starting to notice something unusual about this regular customer. He didn't act like other wealthy patrons, who often treated her with condescension or distracted arrogance. He laughed genuinely at her jokes, asked thoughtful questions, and never tried to flaunt money or status. Yet, something about him made her uneasy. She had encountered men before who wore sincerity, like a mask. Was he truly different? Or was she just another curiosity for him? The tension between them grew one evening when Alexander came in slightly late for his usual visit. A group of well-dressed women noticed him and whispered, nudging each other conspiratorially. Maya saw their furtive glances and a faint smirk on one of the women's faces. She immediately sensed that Alexander might have a life outside these simple interactions, one that could complicate whatever connection they were forming. As he approached her, she gave a careful, polite smile. "You're late," she said lightly, though her tone carried more than just jest. "I got caught up with work," he replied, setting down his briefcase. "But I wouldn't miss seeing you." Maya hesitated. "You say that, but sometimes words are easier than actions." Alexander froze for a moment, realizing the depth in her observation. He wanted to reassure her, but he also knew the truth, revealing the full extent of his life. His billionaire status, media scrutiny, and high society complications might scare her away entirely. And yet, continuing this facade felt wrong too. Before he could respond, a minor disaster unfolded at a nearby table. A young boy spilled a drink on a customer's expensive suit. Maya rushed over, calm and collected, quickly cleaning the mess and pacifying the irritated parent. Alexander watched in admiration, noting how effortlessly she commanded the room without demanding attention. "You handle everything so well," he said once she returned. She wiped her hands on a napkin, her expression thoughtful. "I've had to. Life doesn't hand you breaks. It hands you messes. You learn to clean them up and move on." He nodded, impressed and slightly envious of her grounded perspective. "I wish I had that kind of perspective." "Maybe you do," she said softly, her gaze lingering on him. "You just haven't met the right teacher." Alexander's pulse quickened at the subtle implication. He wanted to believe her, but a part of him feared that revealing his true life might destroy this budding trust. His fortune, his reputation, the very empire he had built. It was all a barrier he wasn't sure he could dismantle safely. The night ended with their usual small exchange, polite words, shared smiles, lingering glances. Yet beneath the surface, a storm of questions simmered. Would Maya see him for who he truly was? Could she trust that his interest wasn't fleeting? That it wasn't another game? The following day, Maya confided in her best friend, Elena, who had worked with her at another cafe before moving to Le Jardin. "He's different," Maya admitted, stirring her morning coffee nervously. "But there's something I can't quite figure out. He's so attentive, so real, but there's this secrecy about him. I can't tell if it's genuine or if he's hiding something." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Well, you know how men like that can be. Money, power, it changes the way they interact. Are you sure you're not just being charmed?" "I don't think it's that simple," Maya said firmly. "There's something about him. Like he actually wants to know me, not just who I am in this job or what I can offer him." Meanwhile, Alexander wrestled with his own doubts. He wanted to be honest, but fear held him back. He knew that revealing his billionaire identity could either solidify their connection or shatter it completely. Yet, the longer he delayed, the more he feared he might lose her. He was growing fond of her in a way that scared him. Her laughter, her perspective on life, the authenticity she brought into his meticulously controlled existence. One evening, a misunderstanding almost derailed everything. Maya spotted Alexander chatting with a woman at a nearby table, laughing warmly at her jokes. Her heart sank. Was he just another man who flirted for amusement, the same as all the others? She felt a rush of anger and disappointment. Alexander, noticing her expression, felt a pang of guilt. The woman he'd been talking to was a colleague who had just joined his company, but he hadn't expected Maya to interpret it the wrong way. He wanted to explain, to assure her, but the words stuck in his throat. He knew that until he revealed the truth, trust would remain fragile. As the night ended, they exchanged a tense, quiet farewell. Both returned to their separate worlds, hearts racing, minds occupied with thoughts of the other. It was clear that something significant was brewing, an unspoken connection that neither could ignore, even as doubts and secrets hovered between them. Little did they know, the moment of truth was fast approaching. Alexander would soon have to decide whether to reveal his identity and risk it all, or remain in the shadows, watching the one person who made him feel alive slip further from his grasp. The next evening, Alexander arrived at Le Jardin with a determination he hadn't felt in years. The weeks of subtle glances, shared smiles, and quiet conversations had built a connection that he could no longer ignore. He knew it was time to reveal the truth, the secret he had kept so carefully. Maya was at her usual station, balancing trays and greeting customers with her characteristic warmth. She smiled when she saw him, though a flicker of uncertainty passed through her eyes, a lingering shadow from their last tense encounter. Alexander felt a pang of guilt. He had waited too long to be honest, and now the moment was finally here. "Good evening, Maya," he said warmly. "Evening," she replied, her tone polite but cautious. "I wanted to invite you somewhere," Alexander began, choosing his words carefully. "Just the two of us. No distractions, no work, no pretenses. Are you free tonight?" Maya hesitated, curiosity mingling with caution. "Where and why?" she asked. "Somewhere quiet," he said, smiling. "Somewhere I can explain something important. You deserve the truth, and I can't keep it from you any longer." Her brow furrowed, suspicion evident. "Important like what?" Alexander took a deep breath. "I'm not just a regular customer," he admitted. I'm Alexander Kane." He watched her carefully, gauging her reaction. "I'm a Billionaire CEO. I run Kane Technologies. And I realize that saying this changes everything, maybe even ruins everything, but I need you to know who I am." Maya's eyes widened, shock written across her face. For a moment, she didn't speak. The restaurant seemed to fade into the background, the noise of clattering dishes and conversations replaced by the sudden, heavy weight of the revelation. "You what?" she finally whispered, her voice trembling. "You're the Alexander Kane?" Alexander nodded, his expression earnest. "Yes, I understand if this changes things. I understand if you want to walk away. I've met women before who only cared about money, and I was afraid you might think the same. But Maya, you're different. Everything about you, the way you see the world, the way you treat people, you're not impressed by wealth or status. You care about honesty, kindness, and authenticity. And that's why I had to tell you the truth. I wanted you to see me for who I really am, not just the image the world sees." Maya's mind raced. Part of her wanted to recoil, fearing that his world would overshadow hers, that the delicate balance they had built would collapse under the weight of his fortune. But another part of her, the part that had laughed with him, shared stories, and felt a genuine connection, wanted to believe him. "You mean all those conversations, your attention, it wasn't some game?" she asked cautiously. "Never," Alexander said, his voice steady. "I've never met anyone like you. Not in years. You've made me feel alive again, Maya. Not the billionaire, not the CEO, just me." Her gaze softened slightly, though uncertainty lingered. "It's just a lot. I don't know if I can trust this. Or you, immediately. It's not that I don't want to, but I've been disappointed before. Alexander reached across the table, careful not to overwhelm her. I know, and I'm not asking for blind trust. I'm asking for a chance. A chance to prove that what I feel for you is real, that I value you, not your curiosity or my own ego. I don't need anything from you except your honesty, your heart, and your time. That's all. Maya studied him, searching for signs of deceit, for anything that might indicate ulterior motives. But all she saw was sincerity, an openness that she hadn't expected from someone in his position. Slowly, she exhaled, a small, tentative smile forming on her lips. All right, she said softly, I'll give you that chance. But know this, I won't be impressed by wealth or gifts. If you want to earn my trust, you do it with who you are, not what you have. Alexander's chest lifted, relief and joy washing over him. I wouldn't want it any other way, he said, his smile genuine and radiant. For the first time, they share a moment of pure connection. No pretenses, no masks, just two people who had found something rare in each other. Authenticity. They laughed, talked, and shared stories late into the evening, discovering more about each other with every word. Alexander spoke about his childhood, the pressures of leading a company, and the loneliness that wealth often brought. Maya shared her dreams of opening her cafe, the small victories and struggles that defined her life, and the family that mattered most to her. By the time the night ended, the fear and tension that had once hovered between them had melted into understanding and hope. Maya had seen his world, but Alexander had also stepped into hers, experiencing a life rooted in sincerity and warmth. As they walked outside, the city lights shimmering around them, Alexander took her hand gently. Thank you, Maya, he said quietly, for giving me a chance, for trusting me. Maya looked up at him, her smile bright and real. Thank you for being honest, she replied. I think we might just make this work. And in that quiet moment, with the bustling city around them, Alexander realized something profound. Love, real love, wasn't about wealth, status, or appearances. It was about connection, trust, and authenticity. And for the first time in a long while, he felt truly seen, truly understood. And for him, that was worth more than all the billions in the world. The days that followed the big reveal were a mixture of excitement and adjustment. Alexander and Maya had crossed the threshold from curiosity to genuine connection, but stepping into each other's worlds presented new challenges. Alexander was cautious. He no longer hid his identity, yet he understood that wealth and influence came with scrutiny. The media, business associates, and even social circles could easily complicate a budding romance. But Alexander wasn't willing to let outside pressures dictate his happiness. He had found someone real, someone who reminded him of life beyond boardrooms and balance sheets, and he was determined to nurture it. Maya, on her part, faced her own concerns. She was protective of the life she had built, her modest apartment, her cafe dreams, and her family responsibilities. She was wary that Alexander's world might overshadow her grounded existence. But she also felt a thrill she hadn't expected. The chance to share her life with someone who genuinely respected her without expecting her to change. Their bond deepened during quiet, intimate moments that contrasted sharply with Alexander's previously controlled life. One weekend, he joined her at a local farmer's market, carrying bags of fresh produce while she sampled homemade pastries and chatted with vendors. Alexander laughed freely as Maya haggled good-naturedly for the best prices, and he marveled at her authenticity. He realized how much he had missed the simplicity of genuine human connection. You really know your way around here, he said, handing her a bag of apples. Maya smiled, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. It's part of life. You learn to find the good in everyday things. It's grounding. Alexander nodded, watching her with admiration. I think I'm learning that too, thanks to you. They spent the afternoon exploring small shops, tasting artisanal cheeses, and discovering little corners of the city Alexander had never taken the time to see. In those moments, he felt alive, free from the constant expectations that came with being a billionaire. Maya, meanwhile, enjoyed showing the world she loved. The streets, the cafes, the parks where families laughed and friends gathered. Back in her apartment, they cooked together, a mess of ingredients and laughter filling the space. Alexander struggled with chopping vegetables, and Maya teased him relentlessly, prompting genuine, carefree laughter. It was these mundane moments, devoid of glamour and expectation, that cemented their connection. Yet challenges remained. Alexander's world sometimes intruded. Gossip, socialites curious about his new friend, and the occasional media leak. Maya, however, remained grounded, refusing to be swept away by extravagance. She taught Alexander the importance of balance, reminding him that wealth and power were meaningless if they didn't nurture real relationships. One evening, while they shared a quiet meal at her apartment, Maya spoke softly. "I don't care about your wealth, Alexander. I care about you. Who you are when no one is watching, when you're not the CEO, the billionaire, or the man the world wants you to be. That's the person I'm falling for." Alexander felt a lump in his throat. Her words were more precious than any praise or accolade he had ever received. He took her hand gently, gazing into her eyes. "And that's the person I want to be for you. I don't want you to ever feel like you have to compete with my world. I want to share it, not overwhelm it." As the weeks passed, Alexander found ways to support Maya's dreams without overshadowing her independence. He helped her research potential cafe locations, connected her with trusted suppliers, and quietly invested in her vision, all while ensuring the initiative remained hers. Maya thrived, empowered by both his belief in her and her own determination. Their relationship, built on trust and mutual respect, became a source of inspiration for Alexander. He realized that his life of luxury and influence could coexist with genuine love, but only if he maintained the humility and authenticity Maya had brought into his world. One weekend, they visited a small art gallery, wandering among the paintings and sculptures. Alexander watched Maya's eyes light up as she admired the colors and textures. He felt a deep sense of contentment, knowing that she could experience life fully unfiltered, without fear of judgment or expectation. Later, as they walked hand in hand through the city streets, Alexander paused. "I never thought I'd find someone like you," he said quietly. "Someone who makes me want to be better, who reminds me why life matters beyond business and wealth." Maya squeezed his hand. "And I never thought I'd meet someone who respects my world as much as his own. You've shown me that love isn't about extravagance. It's about connection, trust, and care." As they shared a quiet moment beneath the city lights, Alexander knew that, together, they could face anything. Their worlds, once so different, had merged in a way that honored both of their lives. They had found balance, authenticity, and the beginnings of love that promised to withstand challenges, gossip, and the pressures of the world outside. For the first time in years, Alexander Kane didn't feel trapped by wealth, fame, or expectation. He felt free, alive, and profoundly in love. And he knew that with Maya by his side, the future, however unpredictable, was brighter than anything he had ever imagined. Months had passed since Alexander Kane revealed his true identity to Maya Rivera. What started as cautious curiosity had blossomed into a relationship built on trust, laughter, and shared dreams. Their worlds, once so different, had found harmony, not through wealth or status, but through genuine connection and mutual respect. Alexander's life, once dominated by boardrooms, contracts, and endless public scrutiny, now had room for simplicity and joy. Weekend mornings spent at farmers' markets, quiet evenings cooking together, and spontaneous walks through the city had become his favorite parts of life. Maya had reminded him that happiness wasn't measured in net worth or luxury cars. It was in moments of authenticity, laughter, and shared love. Maya, for her part, thrived in her world while embracing Alexander's presence. Her cafe dream had taken shape, with Alexander supporting quietly behind the scenes, ensuring that every decision came from her vision, not his influence. The cafe's opening night was a modest yet joyous celebration, attended by friends, family, and a few curious patrons. Alexander watched Maya as she moved through the crowd, confident, radiant, and wholly herself. Pride swelled in him, not for his own wealth or accomplishments, but for her achievements and determination. That evening, after the cafe had quieted down, Alexander and Maya walked together under the soft glow of streetlights. Alexander stopped suddenly, turning to face her, His hand found hers, and he squeezed gently, a quiet intimacy between them. "Maya," he began, his voice calm but filled with emotion, "these past months with you, they've changed me. I've realized that life is meaningless without someone to share it with. I've chased success my whole life, but you've shown me what truly matters: trust, laughter, and love." Maya's eyes softened, a small, genuine smile gracing her lips. "I feel the same way, Alexander. You've respected my world, never overshadowed it, and you make me feel seen in a way no one else ever has." Alexander took a deep breath. "Then I want to make this official. I want us to face the world together, not hiding, not pretending, but openly, fully. I want you by my side through everything, because life is better with you in it." Maya's heart raced as she realized what he was saying, the seriousness in his tone, the unwavering sincerity in his gaze. It was undeniable. Slowly, she nodded, tears of happiness welling in her eyes. "Yes, Alexander, I want that too. I want us." The world outside might have whispered challenges, media attention, envious exes, and inevitable gossip that followed a billionaire, but in that moment, none of it mattered. They had built a foundation stronger than wealth, social expectation, or circumstance. They had built trust, understanding, and a love that could weather any storm. In the following weeks, Alexander and Maya navigated public appearances with ease, introducing her not as a novelty, but as a partner, a true equal in every sense. Friends and colleagues quickly saw what Alexander had known all along. Maya wasn't someone to be dazzled by status. She was someone to be respected, admired, and loved. And Alexander, who had once feared dating and human connection, now walked beside her with pride, joy, and confidence. One quiet evening, Alexander surprised Maya with a small rooftop dinner atop his penthouse. Not lavish, just thoughtful. Her favorite flowers, warm candlelight, and the city skyline stretching endlessly before them. "You made my world brighter," he said, holding her hand over the table. "Not because of what I have, but because of who you are." Maya smiled, her heart full. "And you've made me believe that love doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be real." Alexander leaned in, and they shared a kiss on the stars, the city lights twinkling around them like 1,000 silent witnesses. It wasn't about grand gestures, wealth, or status. It was about two hearts finding home in each other. In that moment, Alexander Kane realized he had finally found what he had been searching for all along. Maya wasn't just a fleeting spark or a distraction from loneliness. She was the anchor, the partner, the love he had never dared to hope for. And Maya realized that love didn't require grandeur or gold. It required honesty, courage, and a willingness to see someone for who they truly were. As they held each other close, the bustling city below seemed to fade away. There was no room for doubt, no fear of judgment, only the certainty that together they could face whatever the world might throw at them. The billionaire CEO, who had once been tired of dating, now smiled freely, laughing and loving with abandon. The hard-working waitress, who had once guarded her heart, now allowed herself to dream, to hope, and to embrace a love she had never imagined. And in that quiet, magical night under the stars, Alexander and Maya knew one undeniable truth. They had found something rare, something powerful, something that no wealth or power could ever buy: true love.